Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today is the round 4 round wrap. Let's get into it. So just want to address it. I've decided to use a face cam in these videos to help add a little bit more personality to the round wraps. So this is me, this is what I look like, and let's see how my team looks like, because this week we got 1,826 ranked in the top 38% and at a rank of about 68 to 69,000. In terms of total score, I'm up to 7,737, ranked pretty much in the top 20% at 34,802. And ultimately, I feel pretty much this week the same that I felt last week, in that it's all right, but it's not what I would have wanted. And so let's have a look at the actual team. Jai Clark at a 52 wasn't a good score. He tends to have these really flaw scores, these 50s. If we look at his stats from last year, he got a 58, a 50, a 71. He had these low scores, and you would have hoped he'd iron these out, but he hasn't. But I don't think he's a trade out, because of course he does have a high break even, so I wouldn't trade him in. But Collingwood, he historically plays well against them, 126, 146, 134. Then he's got West Coast, then he's got Carlton, and he's got Bulldogs, Hawks, Essendon, Saints. So it's an all right run for defenders, but disappointing score. Didn't end up making my best 18. Dan Houston, he had a bounce back game, but ultimately in terms of the Magpies didn't really have that good of a game. Of course, they lost by 54. Dan Houston was the highest scorer, the only one to turn up, with Nick Dacos not playing. But it's a good game for me. 32 disposals, 10 contested possessions, 6 clangers hurt, 81% disposal efficiency. There were times where he'd kick it long down the line and someone else would mark it. And that'd result in basically -2 points for him. If someone else marks it, if a Collingwood player marks it, that is 3 points added onto his score, which basically is a 5-point flip. So if even 2 of those long kicks were marked by a Collingwood player, then he'd be on basically 110. And so I think he definitely still has that improvement there. But I will take this score given the stinker that we were given last round. So onto the rookies. Of course, Jack Sinclair didn't play. Sam Grill, Lockie Jakes, Jai Sarong, all pretty good. Lockie Jakes was probably the most underwhelming of the three, of course, with the 67. He's starting to regress a little bit, but nothing to be worried about. But then Sam Grill and Jai Sarong, man, these two carried my backline, of course. Like a combined, I think, 216 from 2 rookies is amazing. Sam Grill, he had a phenomenal game despite the Tigers not doing so well. He's the 5th highest scorer, 19 kicks at 79%. He got favoured very well by scaling. And I think the amount of points scored in this match was quite low, because of course it did get a bit sloppish towards the end. So everyone has a lot of really good scaling. Does that mean it's a spike score? Probably. But do I care? No, because of course that 90 is now in our price cycle. He's got a break even of -13. He will get to 300k, hopefully push to 350k. Jai Sarong, what a score from him. If we go to that Eagles Swans game, the 3rd highest scorer, the 2nd highest in terms of disposals, 16 kicks, 10 marks at 82%, 90% time on ground, and only 4 clangers. Very, very good showing. 3 score assists as well. And if we look at his heat map, he was very, very good in that wing role and a bit of halfback as well. So a very, very good score from Jai Sarong. Is it another spike score? Yeah, probably, because, of course, West Coast didn't even turn up. No one from West Coast turned up. Tim Kelly was the closest at 95. But if you look at the Swans, You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players get a ton, and James Jordan was pretty close as well. But similar to Grill, I don't really care because this 126 is now in a price cycle. He's got a break even of negative 39, projected to go up by about 50k next round. And if I turn on Supercoach projector, then if he goes at 280s, or if he goes at 80s from here on, he'll get 50k in the next 2 weeks. And of course, he got a 48 last round of 54 before that. So it was looking a bit worrying, but this has really reset his price rise. This is really reset his cash gen. Usually I'd edit bits like that out, but doing one take now. Michael Selwood, it was a bit disappointing, of course. He got a 61 against Adelaide. Was that a spike score? Looking back on it now, probably. We would have hoped he would have done a bit better against Essendon. And he is definitely one I think you can start to consider trading out now. Break even of 17. It's not ideal. He's still projected to make a little bit of cash. But the Dogs don't really have that good of a run. You've got Hawthorn, Geelong, and Sydney. And Josh Lindsay on my bench. Lost out on rookie roulette, but didn't really because it wouldn't have made best 18 anyway. A solid score. It keeps him chugging along, of course. Would have wanted to see another one of those 60s or 70 scores, but as we looked at before, it was a horrific smashing of a game. And so I think we can just write this one off. Of course, it'll hurt his cash gen, but he should still continue to get good money. Moving on to the midfield, we had the captain, Marcus Bontempelli. Very, very happy with this score. 153. We all knew he was going to go big, but he could have gone a lot bigger because Essendon after basically the first quarter of this game really started to fight back. And you can see it from Bont's scoring here. If you go back to quarter by quarter, 49, 45 in the first 2 quarters. He's on 94 at halftime. You're thinking, yes, he's gonna get 200. But unfortunately, I mean, a 30 is still a pretty good score, and then a 29, he sort of tapered off towards the end there. Was very, very favorably helped by scaling, which is a pretty common theme with Bont. But he got tagged by Jai Caldwell, which really affected him. But he still got a 150, which 100% you'll take that as a captaincy score. You take pretty much anything over 130. Zach Butters, he didn't get a 130, and that's why pretty much none of us took him. 114 against Richmond. He was sort of a victim of that sloppiness towards the end. And he has been a tad underwhelming this year so far. 94 against North, he would have wanted better. These 2 games, you would have thought he could have gotten maybe 140s. But that's big expectations from a player. And Zach Butters, he's still averaging 117. And we picked him basically to go through this season, averaging at least 120 and being one of the top 5 mids. And he's on track to do this. Someone who's not on track to do this, however, is Noah Anderson. God, it was supposed to be so good for him. He had the dream run. He had Geelong, West Coast, Richmond, and Melbourne. But he hasn't delivered. West Coast was a good game, yeah. Geelong, hard opponent, sure. But Richmond, disappointing. Melbourne, very disappointing. Still got Essendon on the horizon, so definitely don't trade him out, despite him having a horrific break-even of 170, basically. But it's just been a disappointment for him. And hopefully after that equally disappointing loss from Gold Coast, Damien Hardwick can basically go to him and say, hey, you're our leader. You need to step up and you need to find some form. A similar thing with Touk Miller, although Touk Miller has been markedly better than Noah Anderson. He got an 88, and it really hurt when someone like a Cozzy Pickett, who was almost 100k cheaper, was able to get a 125. But this was just a really bad game for all the Suns players. They played really poorly. Brody Ewland, the only one to ton up. No one else did well. Matt Rao did really, really badly. And so we'll be able to grab him at a cheaper price later down the line. But Took Miller, I have faith that he will still put out an average of basically 110, hopefully. He did that last year, did that the year before that. And he'll get DPP after this round, which is basically the reason I picked him, because he was going to be a good forward option. Tanner Bruin was able to bounce back. He had a pretty good last couple quarters. And this game, man, one of the best games I have ever seen. Had my heart in my throat as a Hawthorn fan. But we look at the quarter splits. Started off a bit poor with a 16, but then 27, 23, 26. You'll very much take these. He's back up to the 90s. I know a lot of people were considering trading him out after what he scored last week, and 1.5% did. And unlucky for those guys, because he's back up to scoring, I reckon, at this 90 average that I think we can expect from him, because, of course, we take that game out, he's basically at 95 average. If he goes 90s, then he'll get up to about 420k by round 9. He'll get up to 446k by his bye, and you'll probably look to get him out after that. Very good score from Tanner Bruin. Jagger Smith, Tumble Myers, it was a bit below their average from both of them. Jagger Smith, I think he started it off strong like he usually does, but just wasn't able to maintain it. And you can expect that from a player as young as him, actually. I was incorrect. To be fair, I didn't really watch the first half, but he had a good third quarter. So take all I said before with a grain of salt. He had a good third quarter. He actually closed it out well, but the start was poor. It was pretty much, it looks pretty opposite to what Carlton did, where they started off pretty strong, closed it out poor, but nothing to worry about. Same with Myers, nothing to worry about. Break-even still negative for the two of them, or not Jagger Smith. His break-even's 5, but we know he has a very good score in him. We saw it against Richmond. He's an accumulating midfielder, and we can expect these big scores from him. Jack Watkins. I gave Sherry an F in my trade-in ratings last round, and I will bring it up again. Jack Watkins is getting an F. I've already put them here. Jack Watkins is getting an F. Took Miller is getting a D. Of course, would have wanted a better score from Took Miller, but Jack Watkins, man. I might have to add him to the list of players I've traded in 1 week and traded out the next week, because I don't know what happened. He was just nowhere. And if we look at his stats, I'll have to move my camera a little bit because it's blocking the screen. He had 8 touches, which was fine, but it was at 38% efficiency. So he was really butchering the ball. 64% time on ground hurt as well. And if we look at the CBAs, he wasn't listed. Oh, no, he was, sorry. He got 50% CBAs, which is better actually than he did last time. But Wines is coming back. He's affecting his CBAs. It's annoying. Brody was, of course, out. And I think there will be other players that will get dropped, hopefully, ahead of him. Hopefully a Ewan McKinlay, maybe a Josh Lai. But these guys actually did well. I mean, McKinlay was all right. But Watkins, man, was just horrible. He also had no other stats. He had no marks, no tackles, no freeze 4, no goals, no score involvements. Nothing else to boost his score. He really just had 2 contested possessions. And yeah, he's one that I will look to hopefully include in my trade plans. But as you'll see later on in this video, I can't really fit it. Cook, the one other player, I lost rookie roulette because I thought Watkins would get a bit more than 60, but he got a lot less. A 60 from Cook is pretty good. of course, we're starting to notice a bit of a weird pattern where he's scoring worse at Adelaide Oval than he is the other grounds. 60s at Adelaide Oval, basically 90s and 80s in Melbourne, which is a bit weird. But he's up to 251k. He's basically gotten 100 since I've brought him in, which I'm pretty content with. And of course, Nick Dacos was a laid out. If Nick Dacos was in, I wouldn't have had to field this Watkins score. Thank you, Nick Dacos. But going on to the ruck line, Luke Jackson was pretty good. 126. Didn't make his break even, but that was a high one. And I'm happy with this score because, of course, last round against Richmond, 108. It was a bit disappointing, but 126 is good. You know, I've come to terms with the fact that he's probably not going to get DPP and that I'm going to have to run him in the ruck line. And I'm fine with that if he's scoring these 120s. He's averaging 122.2. And if we look at the rankings for the ruckman, go by averages, he's fourth. And of course, Tristan Cherry, I don't know what's going to happen with him because he's still suspended. Had that floor game, but had a really good spike game. I think he can battle with the likes of a Max Scorn and a Brodie Grundy for the top 4 rucks, the top basically 2 spots. Grundy, of course, he had some underwhelming scores. He got 112 against Mark Pitney, which you would have thought he'd beaten that. You would have thought he'd gotten like a 135 like he did against Hawthorn and Meakin Reeves. And then 184, everyone seems to be doing well against West Coast. Tristan Cherry got a 199. I think Jordan Sweet actually didn't do well, which is interesting, but he did well against Essendon. But yeah, I think West Coast is a bit of an outlier. And so I think Luke Jackson will be on pretty much a similar level as Brodie Grundy. Tim English, I'll tell you what, I think there's something up with the Essendon ruckman. I think Blackiston is performing some voodoo magic against those we're picking for our Supercoach teams because first you have Tristan Cherry, who has a supreme brain fade. Now we've got Tim English, who's gotten injured and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. And it's really hurting because, of course, we're burning through our trades. And now we've got another dead rookie that pretty much 47% of the comp have. If we look at selections, 84,000 people have Tim English. And as you can see here, 28,000 of them have already traded him out, which is a bit annoying. It's very annoying, actually, to having to keep using these trades. But it is what it is, and everyone's going through it. Harry Sheasel, a 97, a disappointing score. Would have hoped that his match-winning goal would have elevated a bit more, but it was a bit of a meh game from him. Sam Flanders on his bye. Connor Buderick, a 72. Bit underwhelming. Would have hoped for something closer to a 90 or at 100 against Essendon. And I think he's one of the players I'm putting on my chopping block for this week. Jack Lukosius, a 78. It was looking grim for a second there. It was looking like, of course, Watkins was doing poorly. I didn't know yet what Miller was going to do, but he didn't do that well. And it was looking like I was going to lose all 3 of these trades. But Lukosius got it to 78. And I think this is basically around what he needs to score for me to be worthwhile. If he can score an 80 every week, of course, I bought him at 242. He'll get up to 390 basically by the time of his buy. And I'll probably trade him out by then. I think that 150, very good from him, especially with this level of scoring. And given what he did before, this might actually be unders. If he goes at 85, he goes up to 410. And if he goes up to 90, he goes up to 430. So basically every 5 points average he scores, he gets 20k more. So Jack Lukosius, I think, a good pick. especially given I was considering him and Jake Rogers, who didn't really do well. Leo Lombard with a 56. It was a pretty decent bounce back game, given he had a 20 before. I don't think we're going to be seeing that level of scoring that we're seeing from the other rookies like a Jagger Smith, a Sam Grill, Jai Sarong, Lockie Jakes, Tom Myers. I don't think we're going to be seeing that level of scoring, but we'll see enough to basically tick him over. He looks to be solid in that team, not being dropped, of course, after a bad game against Richmond. And if he goes averaging 55, which we'd hope he would be able to do, then he gets up to basically 260. And given a lot of us started him, we'll be getting 140k from him, which is pretty good. And the final player in my team is Lachlan McAndrew, who got a 123. The score we all knew he was capable of. We just needed to see it. A very good score, an extremely good score. Of course, his average is now basically 90. He's winning the averages in terms of the rookies, if you don't count Milan Murdoch. And he'll be a very solid flex or R2 option. And I'll tell you what, I'm kind of thankful for Tristan Cherry having his brain fade now, because I would have had McAndrew at R2. This is a game where I thought he wouldn't do well against. I didn't think he'd fare up against the likes of Darcy and Jackson in the dual ruck system that Freo run. But he got 123. And he's gone back-to-back, basically 70k price rises. And if he can get a 90, he'll get another 50k. Gets another 90 after that, another 50k. He averages 90 from here. Then by the time of his buy, he will get up to 430k, which we will be really, really happy with. And so, yeah, that's how the team did. Of course, done the trade-in ratings already. And so I will bring up the trade targets board because there's some new additions. I think Gawn and Grundy are on the target board, especially given English is going to be out, basically. And then Cozzy Pickett is another one I want to look at because I've already got Sheasel, I've got Flanders, I've got Lukosius, I've got Miller. All will be, I think, solid forward options. And the rookies in the forward line, like Philippou and Buderick, they're not lighting the world up, as well as Cook up here. And so I think Pickett is one I really want to look at to help boost this level of scoring. Because, of course, we've seen now that the defensive rookies are good. You've got Grill with the 90, Sarong with the 126, and then Farrow, who is on the rookies target board, he got a 90 as well, I think 92. And so the rookies in the other lines are pretty good. You've got Murdoch, Blamires, Smith for the midfield. But it's just the forward line, which is a bit lacking. And so I want to try and fortify my forward line because I know a lot of people have weak forward lines. And if I can field a Pickett over a Lombard and that nets me an extra 75 points, then I think that that's 75 points I'll be able to get and add to this total score and add to the deficit that I need to catch up between me and those top teams. And so, yeah, I think Pickett is definitely one a lot of us should look at. I'll bring him up here, especially with his break even at 49. He's up against Essendon. He could very easily go 130 against them. We saw what Shai Bolton did, I think, against, I think it was Richmond. I think he got pretty much a 140. If it lets me scroll down. Against Melbourne, he got a 142. Against Richmond, he got a 130. We can see similar scores like this from Cozzy Pickett because they play pretty much a similar role, except for the fact that Pickett is utilised more in the midfield. And he's the main man for Melbourne, whether Shai Bolton is not the main man for Freo. And also something I want to point out is that Cozzy Pickett is an asset to winning football. Of course, the first game, he had family issues. We don't really count this game. Second game against Freo, they lost. He still got a 90. Then Carlton, a tremendous comeback. And Gold Coast, just another tremendous effort from them. and he averages 130 in those 2 games. So I think Cozzy Pickett, I've never really liked him as a pick before this year, but now I've seen what I needed to see. He's shown us what he's really is capable of. If he goes a 125 in this game against Essendon, he goes up 31 Ks up to 550 with a break even of 78. Let's say he goes 101 against Brisbane, and then he goes another 125 against Richmond. He goes up to 566, which is quite expensive. And it's basically almost 50K from him at this point, which I think if you can get him now, it's basically like you're saving. It's basically like you don't have to get 50K from a rookie because you're saving 50K. And these little bits of cash come in very, very handy. And so that's the premiums. For the rookies, there's not really that much because if we go to those who are on the bubble this week, go do under 3 matches and filter down to those below 200K basically. Oscar Steen didn't really light the world alight. He got a 41. It was a bit of a down score. If we go by games played, James Tunstall, no. Finbar Maley is a bit too expensive at that price point. Oliver Wiltshire was looking pretty good for the first half, but then fell off a bit. Josh Lai with a 54. Arthur Jones with an 82, but unfortunately he is injured, so he's not a pick anymore. Would be one to look at when he's eventually named back. Harry Schoenberg, no, he's going to go out when Murdoch comes back in, which should be hopefully right around the corner. I think they said round 6 he's tracking for. Taylor Byrne, 29, nope. So I think the only 2 rookies worth getting are Oscar Steen and Jacob Farrow. And there are quite a few to actually consider for next round. If we go by average, Lockie Goldwyn with an 82, as well as Jordan Boyd, but of course you'd want to go Lockie Goldwyn because he's a lot cheaper. Josh Dolan with a 71, one to look at. Of course, they do have Brisbane. One to look at, but they do have Bevo as the coach. Will Brodie, of course, didn't play. Flynn Perez with a 64. He did pretty well, and at 99K is a very cheap trade-in option for next round. Thomas Edwards with a 58, solid score. Liam Fawcett, solid score. There's a lot of solid scores. I think Jack Dalton, 38. He looked good, and hopefully he can get called up again. But maybe not one for Supercoach. And so I think also I will move on to look at my trade block, which I'm going to take Bruin off of it because he's deserved to stay. So has Houston. And I'm going to add now English because he's injured. So we basically need to get him out. And it hurts to say it, but I think I'm going to have to use my 4th boost in a row. I didn't want to use a boost through the bye periods, and now I've used a boost every single round of it. But the trades for now, I think the first 2 are going to be Tim English and Connor Buderick for Max Gawn and Cozzy Pickett. And that leaves me with 45K in deficit. And in an ideal world, I would trade out Jack Watkins and I would bring in Jacob Farrow, but I don't have enough cash. And so it's going to hurt me again, but I think I'm going to have to trade Braden Cook out early, prematurely, just to make sure I can get Jacob Farrow in because I really like the look of this kid. I was really hot on him in my preseason teams. 49, it was his first game, and it was a pretty poor game from Essendon, but a 90. I think he can definitely be that distributing player off the halfback line for Essendon, definitely assisting the likes of an Archie Roberts. If we look at his heat map, look at that. It's a crescent right there. It's perfect. Just touches, cheap touches on the wings, kicks, handballs, all of that. Got 12 marks as well. 91% efficiency. He just looks really, really good. And Braden Cook, his break-even is 11. He's got Carlton, Sydney, Brisbane, or Carlton Saints, Brisbane, which are pretty decent teams. If he goes at basically 55s or 60s, he's going to get 30 more K. And that's 30K I'm going to miss out on. However, Jacob Farrow, if he's going at 75s, which I think he can average for the year, he'll get up to basically 360, 370. So he'll get 200K. But Oscar Steen, however, if we look at him, sure he has a lower break even for now, but I don't think he's got the level of scoring that Jacob Farrow has. I think if he goes at a 50, or if he goes at a 55, I'll be a bit generous. He'll get up to basically 260, which is getting a lot less cash. If he goes 65s, then he'll get up to 320, and that's quite late in the season. So he'll more accurately get up to about 310. And I think he is going to average around about that 55 mark. I think the first game was a bit of an anomaly because they did so well against Giants. And Giants don't really have that good of a ruckman. Of course, you've got difficult matchup, meh matchup, easy matchup, but cursed matchup. Difficult matchup, meh matchup, difficult. So it's a lot harder of a run for Oscar Steen. I also think Darcy's going to up his performance to try and stake his claim because he's being challenged now for that ruck spot. And I think the cash that I'm going to lose by trading out Braden Cook early is going to be offset by the extra bit of cash that Jacob Farrow is going to make over the likes of Oscar Steen, which is what is leading me to make this choice. Of course, Max Gawn, he has a very, very easy run. He's got Essendon. I'm going to try and weather the curse. Third time's the charm, as they say. Then he's got Brisbane, pretty easy matchup. Richmond, easy matchup. Then he's got Sydney, which is going to be a battle, but I have faith in Gawn to prevail over Grundy. And then you've got West Coast, which, if anything's to go by, Max Gawn should be targeting his PB of 215 because everyone else has been getting up there. Hawthorn, hard matchup. You'd assume English should be back by then. Then you've got easy matchup against Nick Madden. Then, move the camera a little bit to the side. You've got Essendon again. You've got Richmond again. Of course, Nank will probably be back by then, but it's still a good matchup. Then you've got Geelong, Adelaide, none of which really have that much established ruckman. Of course, McAndrew and Mitch Edwards, I think his name is. But it's a pretty good run for Max Gawn. And I also do want his captaincy scores because I want a good 3 or 4 options that I can choose from each week for captaincy scores. And if I optimize the team, right now I have that. I've got Bont, I've got Dacos, I've got Butters, and I've got Gawn, all of which I can depend on for a really big captaincy score. And I think the projected is 2,229, which I think is fairly competitive. Of course, it will be overs because you'd hope that the likes of Dev Rob scores more than this, likes of a McAndrew scores more, likes of Noah Anderson scores a bit more than that, and Grill, Jakes, and Sarong should hopefully beat these scores. Also, Milan Murdoch might be back. Todd Marshall might be back, so I'll move him on field over Leo Lombard. Doesn't affect the projected score because, of course, it's best 22. And I think this will be the team going into next round. VCs, I think I'm going to go Gawn into Bont, but I could be tempted to have a throw at Nick Dacos. But I think, especially given he's coming off that injury, I think it's just very safe to go Max Gawn. Of course, against Essendon, against the curse that they're putting on Ruckman, you just want that safety net to fall back on, which is Marcus Montepelli, solid, reliable scorer. If you have a Baz, you could potentially go him as your C against West Coast. Of course, I think mids have been scoring pretty well against West Coast. But yeah, I think I don't have any of those Geelong players. I'm not going to captain Tanner Bruin, but I think this will be the captaincy setup rocking into round 4. And so I just want to have a quick look at those who are leading the rankings and how their teams are built. The top team of the week, of course, had Grundy and Gawn. Grundy vice captained. You had Bont, you had Pickett, you had Bailey, you had Coleman. You had all these good players. You had McDonald. You can get very, very lucky in Supercoach. And of course, this score right here, that's 2,300 basically. That is almost a 500-point swing on my team. And luck is basically the name of the game with this. You really need to get lucky to push up these rankings. Diamond Cutter here, if we look at him, he started Gawn. He got lucky there. He's also started Steele. He's gotten really lucky there as well as Pickett and Dersma and Sarong. And these guys have really pushed him up the rankings. As well as Ash as well, because Ash, he had a bad first game, but then a good next couple of games. Of course, I think we looked at him last week or the week before. Doesn't really have the best bench, so we should be able to catch him. But he already has a massive head start on the rest of the pack. Of course, Johnson here had Heaney captained, Gawn in the ruck. Pretty much all these teams have Gawn rucked. Gawn, Grundy, Gawn, captained, Gawn. It's the one magnet that's not changing basically this entire field is that they've got Gawn in the ruck line, which I think this just emphasizes how important early teams are. But, it's still not too late to make a run. And I think with that, feel free to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, if you like the way I look. And so, yeah, I'll hopefully run the face cam in the final trades video on Thursday. And comment down below if I've looked good on screen, if there's anything about this format that I should change, because of course I'm running a different format with the screen recording here. And so comment if you like that, and comment your trade thoughts down below. As I said, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy coaching.